The Tampa Bay Lightning had already clinched the postseason before they took the loss against Buffalo on Saturday, but there still is work to be done. Who would you like to see the Lightning play in the 2025 NHL postseason?
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Josh Sperber, thanking all of you for making Locked On Lightning your first listen every day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And if your team is the Tampa Bay Lightning, then this is the show for you. And I know that the big NHL story of the weekend is Alexander Ovechkin scoring his 895th career goal, passing Wayne Gretzky. 12 of those goals scored against current Lightning netminder Andrei Vasilevskiy. And undoubtedly, Ovechkin's the greatest goal scorer in NHL history. Big congratulations to Ovi. But a more unfortunate result happened for the Lightning on Saturday, a loss to the Tampa Bay Lightning. But before that game, the Bolts had already clinched a postseason berth. It is their 8th consecutive playoff berth, longest streak in franchise history. And thanks to the New York Rangers' loss to the New Jersey Devils. 17th playoff appearance for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And since 2001, no team has won more games in the Stanley Cup playoffs than the Bolts. They have played 213 games in the postseason, also the most since 2001. And the Bolts have won 122 of those games. They've won 87 of 146 since 2015, also the most. Break down just about any metric this century, and the Tampa Bay Lightning are the winningest playoff team, or the winningest team in the postseason in the NHL. Whatever way you slice it, the Lightning have been dominant in the playoffs. Unfortunately, they were not dominant in the game against the Buffalo Sabres. It was a quite even contest, a really solid game from Jonas Johansson, and a game where both teams put in their backup goalie. And Jacob Reimer just made some bigger saves than Johansson did. The Lightning had 24 shots to Buffalo's 38, a rare point where it was the Sabres that controlled much of the possession, and it was the Sabres that seemed to be controlling the action, despite the fact that it was the Lightning that scored first, Braden Point, right off the faceoff in the second period. But the Sabres had an answer about 3 minutes later. Then Gage Gonzalez in the second period as well. That really seemed like an equalizer until the power play. But that first goal especially was preventable. And there were a couple other chances where Jacob Reimer just took it away from the Tampa Bay Lightning. I mean, there were just some spectacular saves that James Reimer made for Buffalo. And now Reimer has won each of his last 5 starts for the Sabres, dating back to March 25th against Ottawa. So the Sabres are starting to come back, are starting to make their presence felt. It could be too little too late in terms of the playoffs, but 6 straight wins for James Reimer. And in 3 of those 6 games, he had over 30 saves. So Lightning just came up against a hot goalie. But, I mean, you look at a couple saves. For me, the one that really changed things for me was that one-time opportunity on Brandon Hagel. I mean, the Lightning had just moved the puck so well. It was such a well-worked goal opportunity. There was side of the net open. It was just one of those plays where offensively the Lightning did absolutely everything right, but it's just the 1 out of 10 times that the goaltender is going to come out and just take that save out of the air. And there was a couple of those from Reimer on the Lightning that I think, okay, maybe you'd expect to see a goal, but that one in particular to me was Reimer taking the win from the Tampa Bay Lightning, because all the Bolts needed was one more goal. And that, to me, was the best scoring opportunity that was just snatched out of the air by James Reimer. One of the things that you can't blame the Lightning offense for. They passed it around perfectly. They found Hagel wide open in the center of the ice. He one-times it from that distance. You'd expect him to score 9 out of 10 times, but this was just the 1 out of 10 times that Reimer took it out of the air. There's also one goal, I think, on the other side of things that was preventable, and that's the Tage Thompson goal, his 40th of the season. And I don't want to disrespect Tage Thompson. He's been one of the top goal scorers in the NHL this season. He's, had a great year, but that goal was preventable. It came off of, not a great pass from Johansson to Perbix. Perbix had a trailer, and you could tell that Perbix heard the Perbix heard the footsteps, and he got a little bit rattled, and the Sabres took the puck away right in front of the net, found Tage Thompson for an easy one. And that's a preventable goal to me. I mean, I don't want to do the whole, Johansson's the backup. Vasilevsky wouldn't have made that pass out. But all Johansson had to do, I think, was just freeze the puck, and that could have been prevented. Again, coulda, woulda, shoulda. It's not really going to get you anywhere. But I think you look at one goal for one goal and one attempt that went the Sabres' way, changed the game right there. I think Johansson doesn't make that pass to the Sabres might score it again later on, but that Tage Thompson goal doesn't happen. The Lightning have more momentum, and maybe they break open for a couple more goals. Maybe that Hagel one time goes in if Johansson just holds on to that puck instead of giving it out to Perbix close in. You can't go off of maybes, but those are just two moments in the game for me that it seemed like the Lightning could have changed. But it's not a loss that you want for the Tampa Bay Lightning, especially at this point in the season. But another one that I don't think you can pin this on Johansson, even with that pass. But, this is I think if this is a playoff game, this might be a win for the Lightning, because you're going to have Vasilevsky in the net, and he probably wouldn't have made that pass to Perbix that led to the Thompson goal. But this was definitely a winnable game for the Lightning, and it could be one that after the next 6 games that you look at and say, hey, the Lightning could have won first place had this game gone a different way. But unfortunately, it didn't. And now the Lightning are heading into a make-or-break week in terms of getting first place. I mean, they've got 3 games against 3 teams that are challenging for a playoff spot. One of them on the road, 2 more at home. And they got to win them all. I mean, Lightning, if you look at the standings right now, they're 4 points behind the Maple Leafs. One of those games next week is against Toronto. That game on Wednesday is the most important Lightning game of the season, plain and simple. If the Lightning win that game, they still have a chance for first place. If they lose that game, they can stick with a 4 seed, and they can start planning to take on the Florida Panthers in the playoffs once again. Gage Gonzalez, though, getting the goal was, he just continues to impress me this season. Gonzalez at the beginning of the year kind of looked like, a complimentary piece on a bottom 6 line, but the way he's been shooting, the way he's been passing, whatever happened to Gage Gonzalez in between when he was sent down in late January and called up right around the 4 Nations break, the development that he went through since coming back from 4 Nations after taking that time in the AHL, not taking a break like the rest of his NHL Lightning teammates. Gonzalez was sent down to the AHL and just continued to develop his game, had a couple of great games for the Crunch, and then came back to the NHL like a new player. And the Lightning are looking like they've got, a really solid piece in Gage Gonzalez. Do I think he's going to end up being a superstar? Maybe not, but I definitely think he is someone that can provide some solid forward depth and some scoring punch no matter what line he is on. And you look at some of the offensive players that have emerged for the Lightning this year, a couple of them coming over in trades in Yanni Gourde and Oliver Bjorkstrand. But Gage Gonzalez, some homegrown talent from the Tampa Bay Lightning that I think they can rely on in the future. He's 24 years old, someone who I think can play a big role for the Tampa Bay Lightning in the years to come. But obviously there is still some hockey left, 6 games left in the NHL season for the Tampa Bay before the playoffs. And with the Rangers' loss against the Devils on Saturday, the Tampa Bay Lightning are going to be in the postseason once again. Who would you like to see the Bolts play in the Stanley Cup playoffs? And more importantly, who would you not like to see them play in the first round, particularly? You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. I've been in that spot where you need the right hire like yesterday. The pressure is on, and every day without the right person is a setback. That's exactly when Indeed sponsored jobs come in handy, and they make sure your post is seen by the right candidates right now. Now you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply, but if you're hiring, Indeed is all you need. After months, I'm sure, of everyone, myself included, ruminating over different playoff matchups, where the Lightning are going to fall at the end of the season, we can finally at least put the playoff parts to somewhat of a rest because the Lightning have clinched. If you look at the Eastern Conference playoff picture, 5 of the 8 teams that are involved have the X next to their name. The Washington Capitals leading all Eastern Conference teams with 107 points, followed by the Toronto Maple Leafs, then the Carolina Hurricanes, and then the Tampa Bay Lightning, 2 points behind the Hurricanes for that 4th spot. And they are 2 points ahead of the Florida Panthers for the 5th spot. It seems a little bit less likely that the Lightning will drop less than 4th, than 5th, excuse me. But if everything goes wrong, the Lightning can, I think, fall as low as the first wild card spot where the Senators sit at 88. Again, that seems less likely. 6 points to make up in 6 games. The Lightning have to have a pretty bad collapse, and the Senators have to pretty much win out. The Lightning do not play Ottawa for the rest of the season, but that beginning of April game against the Senators could prove costly if the Lightning continue this losing streak. But I mean, the last 2 games were virtual coin flips in terms of who could win between the Lightning and Senators on Thursday, then the Lightning and Sabres on Saturday. And the Lightning just didn't have it. And now the Lightning are at another kind of make or break point in the season. We'll talk about that a little bit in the next segment, starting with a game against the Rangers on Monday. But in this one, we're going to talk about who the Lightning might be playing in the postseason. And right now, it is currently set to be a matchup between the Lightning and the Florida Panthers, a rematch of last year's first-round series. The season series still yet to be decided. Right now, the Panthers have a 2-1 edge. Another potential option if the Lightning move up would be against the New Jersey Devils, which the Lightning have won 2 of their last 3, a team they have not lost in regulation against since 2023 are the Devils. And then more dire scenarios, if the Lightning drop a little bit lower and the Devils overtake Tampa, Devils currently have 89 points and sit at 6th in the Eastern Conference. They'd play the Carolina Hurricanes, another team that the Lightning has gotten the better of a couple of times over the course of the season. But the Hurricanes have been playing quite well in 2025 and have been one of the better teams in the Eastern Conference. So obviously nothing is given for Tampa Bay. And if the Bolts fall all the way down to the top wild card spot, they would play the Toronto Maple Leafs, where the Senators are projected to battle at the current 7th seed. And I think that would be the worst case scenario. The Leafs have gotten the better of the Lightning all 3 games so far this season. And I think the Lightning would be hard pressed for Tampa to take them down in the regular season. The Carolina Hurricanes are a team ahead of the Lightning that the Bolts have beaten twice this season, but more recently, the Hurricanes got the better of Tampa on March the 11th. And that was a time where the Canes were certainly on fire and the Lightning were not having one of their better runs of the season. But the Hurricanes, I think, are a team the Lightning could beat in the postseason. Of course, a lot of things have changed with the deadline deals that Carolina has made. But through all that kind of chaos, they have turned into one of the best teams in the East, but they have a very similar makeup to the Tampa Bay Lightning. Currently, they have the advantage at home. They are one of the very few teams in the NHL with more wins at home than the Tampa Bay Lightning. Only the Jets, Stars, Hurricanes, and Kings have more wins at home than Tampa Bay this season. The Hurricanes are the most at 30. And, I mean, for me, the Lightning just can't fall that low because a great home team against another great home team, whoever has home ice advantage is going to win. And if the Lightning play the Hurricanes in the postseason, it's more likely that the Hurricanes will be the team with home ice advantage. I don't think that that's going to happen. I believe enough in the Tampa Bay Lightning that they're not going to lose the rest of their games this season, which is essentially what they'd have to do to play teams like the Hurricanes or the Maple Leafs, which are frankly the two teams that when I look at this playoff picture, I just don't want to see the Lightning go up against. But I think the Lightning to put themselves in the best position, I think the thing that they need to do the most would be to try and overtake the Hurricanes, getting into that 3 spot, getting into maybe even the top spot in the Atlantic Division would certainly be a boon to the Lightning's playoff chances. Because I think the Lightning match up well against the Devils. They have scored a lot against the Devils. I think their highest goals per game against a specific team is against the Devils this season. So I think that would be the ideal first-round matchup for Tampa Bay. But I kind of like the poetry of the Lightning playing the Florida Panthers. And maybe right now, the way that the Panthers are playing, that might be the ideal playoff matchup. The only reason I don't want to pull the trigger on saying that is because regardless of the fact that the Panthers have not played like the defending Stanley Cup champions down the stretch run of the season, I mean, the Lightning really overtook second place from them, in part because the Bolts have played well in the season stretch run, but also the Panthers have not. This is a team that's going to play the Lightning in a couple of weeks. And a while ago, I'd be a little bit more nervous for Florida, but the Panthers in their last 10 games have won 3. They've lost 5 straight, all of them against teams that are fighting for a playoff spot in the Eastern Conference. And, the Lightning, I still think, are a dark horse turning into a legitimate contender in the Stanley Cup postseason. And it would be a pretty big statement victory to beat the team that not just took out their rival pretty handily in the first round of the postseason last year. Short series, Panthers, won that pretty easily and took the series in 5 games. So, for the Lightning to start the next postseason after that in the post-Stamkos era, outplaying projections of so many pundits at the beginning of the season, playing with that chip on their shoulder, I think a win against the Panthers in the first round could be a huge motivator because obviously beating your rival, obviously is a massive motivator, massive momentum boost, massive morale boost, confidence boost, any kind of positive adjective that you could throw. I don't think there'd be anything that would motivate the Lightning more than redeeming themselves from last year's playoff loss and taking down the Panthers in the postseason. So honestly, I'd like to see the Lightning rise up in the playoffs because I think the individual team they match up the best against is definitely the Devils. They've had their number for the most part this season, and played some of their best games against the Devils, both in Tampa Bay and in New Jersey. So I think that would be the ideal matchup for the Lightning. You want to see them climb up in the postseason, but I think the way the Panthers are playing and the way the Lightning are playing, that might not be a bad jumpstart for the Lightning in the playoffs. But I think that question can only really be answered on April 15th when the Lightning take on the Florida Panthers in their home finale for what will certainly be an important contest. But the next important contest for Tampa happens tonight. Lightning travel to New York to take on the New York Rangers, the same team that lost to the New Jersey Devils 4-0 on Saturday afternoon. And with that loss, the Lightning were playoff bound. And now the Lightning could put a massive dent in the Rangers' playoff hopes on Monday. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much money I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter, save more, and cook more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. And managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. A last game before a crucial 4-game homestand that almost ends the season. And it's a game against a familiar foe, the Lightning taking on the New York Rangers for the penultimate time. The Lightning have 2 more trips to Madison Square Garden in the next couple of days. The Rangers hosting the Lightning on the last game of the regular season on April 17th in Madison Square Garden after 10 days of waiting between this matchup. And each team is led by a strong winger. Artemi Panarin is almost single-handedly keeping the Rangers in the playoff race, so they're still on the outside looking in. If you take a look at the wild card standings right now, the Rangers with 79 points, currently 6 out of that last wild card spot. They do have a game in hand over the Montreal Canadiens, who sit in the 8th spot in the Eastern Conference at 85 points. The Rangers positioned best in the Metropolitan Division to get a wild card spot, as the Senators and Canadiens currently hold the top 2 positions. But the Rangers, the Rangers are a team that has played the Lightning just once this season. Lightning won it 6-2 in Tampa Bay. Their power play is 17th in the league, though their penalty kill is top 10, and their faceoff is top 5. But the power play, obviously a big difference, and I think it's a lot different. It's a lot different effect if you take Kucherov out of the game versus if you take Panarin out of the game. I think the way that the Rangers are playing, Artemi Panarin is just the main guy that you need to stop. He has almost 20 more points than anyone else on the Rangers, with JT Miller coming up in second at 61. And it's a similar kind of breakdown to Kucherov on the Lightning. He has 30 more points than Brandon Hagel. The only difference is the Lightning have 4 players with over 70 over 70 points on the season. And Artemi Panarin would be tied for second on the Tampa Bay Lightning in points. And the Lightning would have 2 players over the next highest point scorer for the Rangers. I mean, you look at the offensive depth, that the Lightning are unmatched when it comes to most of the league, but the Rangers certainly don't have the kind of offensive firepower, I think, to match the Lightning straight up. On paper, this is absolutely a matchup that the Lightning should win. And that's good because this is a team the Lightning play twice on the road. I think Vasilevsky is going to be in net for definitely tonight's game. I think the last game of the season, it just depends on where the Lightning stand in the playoffs. But with games against the Maple Leafs on Wednesday, we're going to talk a lot about that over the next 2 days. And then the Panthers, I think that result will really determine if Andrei Vasilevsky is going to be playing against the Rangers in the last game of the season. But I'd be pretty surprised if it's not Vasilevsky versus Shesterkin, the 2 leaders in terms of shots faced and saves made in the NHL so far this season. 2 of the goalies that are just busiest in the postseason. But Vasilevsky's second in the league in wins. He is 4th in the league in shots faced and 3rd in the league in saves made, with Shesterkin 2nd in the league in saves made after facing 30 more shots than Vasilevsky. He leads the league, and that means a lot of teams are getting in goal scoring positions against the Rangers. I think a team with a defense that's as leaky as the Rangers has been is very advantageous matchup-wise to the Tampa Bay Lightning, because they're a team that, offense is the strength of their game, and the Lightning beat teams by just pummeling them offensively and just, firing in shot after shot. And if they can get control of the puck, if they can control possession, if they can, be the team that leads on attack, I think they can win this game handily. But you look at the last game these 2 teams played, the Rangers had almost 20 more shots than Tampa Bay. Vasilevsky made 42 saves, one of his highest marks in a game at any point this season. And 2 of the Lightning's 6 goals were shorthanded on 25 shots. The Rangers had 44. And even in that game, the Lightning just kept cashing in. And I think, the more the Lightning have chances offensively, I think the bigger the margin of victory is going to be. I really think that you look at the way that these 2 teams are playing right now, the Lightning are fighting to get that second spot, or to get that top spot in the division, to move up, whether it's past the Hurricanes, Maple Leafs, or both. 2 tough losses in the last 2 games, but now I think they've got the clinching playoffs monkey off their back, and I think that can really take a load off of Tampa Bay. But at the same time, they also know that their backs are against the wall, and they've got to fight not just to try and move up in the playoff rankings, but to keep their current position. And the Lightning, at a lot of points this season, have played their best hockey when their backs have been against the wall. I think a perfect example was their 7-game winning streak throughout most of the month of February. Lightning had a couple of really tough losses, an overtime loss against the Islanders at home. Then they stared down the barrel of a 4 consecutive game streak, all against divisional opponent, including a road back-to-back in Montreal and Detroit, not exactly close to each other. Against their divisional teams, they won all 4 of those games, going a 7-game win streak. And at that point, the Lightning had slipped out of Lightning had slipped into the wild card. They were at their lowest point in terms of the playoff race in 2025, and they turned around, and now they're in the position they are. Without that 7-game win streak, the Lightning aren't challenging for the division right now, plain and simple. So right now, the Lightning have had a similar lead up. Two, coin flip kind of games, 2 games that you'd want back, 2 games that you'd expect and hope the Lightning would win with the playoffs on the line right now, but they didn't. And now they've got a chip on their shoulder. Yes, they clinched the playoffs, but they certainly didn't do it the way that they wanted to. They wanted to go into Buffalo, beat the Sabres, and then celebrate a win. The playoff clinching celebration is dulled a little bit when it's, a loss from another team. Certainly doesn't take away the sweetness of it, but it probably leaves a bitter taste in some of the Lightning players' mouths. And I think that the Lightning really want to solidify their playoff contention. They're going to have to essentially win out if they want to raise up. But a win against the Rangers on Monday would set them up for a very important stretch of the season against divisional teams at Amalie Arena. And that is where we're going to leave off for today. I am Josh Sperber, thanking all of you for making Locked On Lightning your first listen every day. Now, for your second listen, make sure to check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champ is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. And wherever you found this podcast today, thank you again. Please give us a like, a follow, a subscribe. We really appreciate your guys' support. So once again, I'm Josh Sperber, thanking all of you for tuning into Locked On Lightning. Go Bolts, and have a great start to your week.